Welcome to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell-Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Well, today I am really excited to bring you a special episode in honor of World Mental Health Day. So, just some facts on why it is really so important for us to continue the conversations around mental health and mental health awareness. According to the World Health Organization, many aspects of mental health have been challenged, and already before the pandemic in 2019, an estimated 1 in 8 people globally were living with a mental disorder. At the same time, the services, skills, and funding available for mental health remain in short supply and fall far below what is needed, especially in low and middle income countries. And then when you take into account the COVID-19 pandemic, it increased the global crisis for mental health, fueling short and long-term stresses and undermining the mental health of millions. Estimates put the rise in both anxiety and depressive disorders at more than 25% during the first year of the pandemic. At the same time, mental health services have been severely disrupted, and the treatment gap for mental health conditions has widened. So, growing social and economic inequities, protracted conflicts, violence, and public health emergencies affect whole populations, threatening progress towards improved well-being. A staggering 84 million people worldwide were forcibly displaced during 2021. So, who works to deepen the value and commitment that we give to mental health as individuals, communities, and governments, and match that value with more commitment, engagement, and investment by all stakeholders across all sectors? We must strengthen mental health care so that the full spectrum of mental health needs is met through a community-based network of accessible, affordable, and quality services and support. Stigma and discrimination continue to be a barrier to social inclusion and access to the right care. Importantly, we can all play a part in increasing awareness about which preventative mental health interventions work, and World Mental Health Day is an opportunity to do that collectively. We envision a world in which mental health is valued, promoted, and protected, where everyone has an equal opportunity to enjoy mental health and exercise their human rights, and where everyone can access the mental health care they need. That is the mission of WHO, and that is the reason for World Mental Health Day. I'm really excited today to be joined by licensed therapist, founder, and owner of Happily Ever After Counseling, Kori Lee. She is also my personal therapist. She has also been on the Gyrl podcast in season 1. So if you missed that episode, you'll want to check it out. Kori her practice focuses on helping people identify their mental health struggles. They offer treatment in areas such as depression, co-parenting, work relationships, and career development. Kori worked as a counselor for over 13 years, and she started the company after leaving the school system. With more than 800 clients, she and her team service between 1 to 2,000. They see between 1 to 2,000 visitors on their site every day and service more than 800 clients. So I am really, really excited to have this conversation. We will be talking about why therapy shouldn't be an accessory in your life. And that in conjunction with the WHO mission and theme of this year's World Mental Health Day is making mental health and well-being for all a global priority. We will continue to talk about it on the show because it is so important to have these discussions. So stay tuned. I will be right back with Dr. Kori. Welcome back to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, I am very pleased and honored I'm sorry, I'm giddy like a child, but I'm so pleased and honored to welcome Kori Lee into the podcast. So welcome back.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be back. I love it. It's always fun. We're going to spend too much time laughing.
I know, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I just immediately went into like girlish, like girl crush mode.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah. And they're going to think we're sipping on something. Nobody's sipping on anything. We're just happy. We're just joyful.
Yes. And as I mentioned before the break, that she is my personal therapist. She's a licensed therapist and also founder and owner of Happily Ever After. So I am just so proud to like continue to see your business grow and just to be like a part of it and to know you. It's like you are just like such an amazing person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, I'm blushing.
Well, before we dive into our discussion, let's tell the audience listening and watching who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Kori Lee. I am a therapist in Atlanta, Georgia. I work with individuals. I work with couples. I help manage the practice. I'm kind of like a all over the place, but like still centered in the business. And of course, personal. I have a husband. I have a bunch of children. I have these two little fur babies that are like around my feet right now. So if I look down, that's what I'm doing. I have a big family in Atlanta, though. We had a big family dinner on Monday, and it's just like that's the core of who I am. I'm all about connection and family and trying to help facilitate that for others through my work.
Awesome. I love that. And well, I actually successfully barricaded my fur baby out today.
Okay.
He was on the sofa, like turned upside down, sleeping. So I took it as an opportunity to run in and close the door. Yes, because if not, then he becomes a part of this episode, and you see me doing this like the whole time too.
Yeah, that's me. That'll be me.
All right. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, that this episode is a special episode, and it is in honor of World Mental Health Awareness Day, which is so important to me and this show, and it's like I can't scream enough about the importance of people having someone and a place and a safe space to talk about things and discover things about themselves. So it's not just that you use therapy as a place to like get help, but you discover who you are as a person, and it helps you to grow and gives you tools to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, very well said. That's exactly what it is. And like you said, it's ongoing and you're always kind of reflecting on all the interactions you have throughout the day. So good. Yeah, you want to always be building and evolving and growing. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, where the practice of therapy has evolved over the last 3 years, especially given the pandemic.
Yeah. I know we were just, talking in our warm up about I had just gone back for my first in-person session. So I know a lot of what people associate as far as therapy in the pandemic are virtual sessions. So there were some therapists doing virtual therapy prior to that. I had some clients who requested it of me, and I just was always so against it. I thought it was so inorganic. I was like, the connection's going to be bad. I was just so against it. And so the pandemic forced all of us really to get into the habit of like just showing up and letting people show up where they were, literally, whether they're in their car, in their home. I've had clients, especially throughout the pandemic, especially if they live with someone. I've had clients do sessions in the closet, like anywhere they can cultivate a safe space. But that was the real big boom of virtual therapy. Now a lot of therapists are not going back. Honestly, they're just not. And going back, like I was saying, it was very odd being in person. I can't really put my finger on it. I think just because it's been years. I closed down March 13th, 2020. So here we are more than 2 years later, and I'm just now going back. So I know that's what the pandemic did. It kind of created more availability for therapy, I think.
Yes. I would definitely say yes to that. You had more people who were curious about having discussions and just wanting to talk about how they were feeling during the pandemic. I mean, you saw more commercials on TV. Yeah. I've never seen more commercials about like talking to someone or all these different types of like therapy services out there. But with that being said, I mean, I'm still sure, there are still, people who are like, I'd like to go to therapy. But they never take that step. They're just like sort of like, you can imagine my foot in the air for anybody listening. And those who are watching, I'm actually acting it out. But it's like that first, like, I want to. But then what do you see as like roadblocks and barriers? Because there's a reason, there's something that stops people from like actually taking the step to seek help.
Oh yeah. Well, when I have clients who actually start, it's not uncommon for people to say, I've been wanting to do this for years. And so I'll talk about with them as far as like what were your preconceived notions or what were the obstacles that kind of kept you from starting. So I've heard a variety of different things from people were afraid of being judged. People weren't sure of how the interaction was going to be as far as like what happens during a therapy session. Like almost like we're not wizards, but like, am I going to be forced to say something I don't want to say? Or am I going to be uncomfortable? Or is it going to be too much money? Is this a financial obligation that I'm not going to be able to keep up with? There's just such a variety of different things. But one thing I do notice is that people that are interested in it anyway do eventually kind of test the water a little bit. And they always say the same thing, like, I wish I did this earlier. I wish I knew it was like this and not whatever their preconceived notion was. So yeah, they're always excited they started, but there is apprehension at first. Maybe what will my family think, or what will my partner or my spouse think? Yeah, they're kind of preoccupied with like things like that. Mm-hmm.
That's really a good, I think a lot of times I was always thinking about like the things that pop up, like the financial, responsibility. Like that's definitely something that like comes to top of mind first. But then I think that you said something really important, like, what will my family think? What will my significant other think? And I know like when I first started therapy with you, I think I remember saying to you, like, my parents were both like, I mean, why do you need to talk to somebody? And I was like, it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Right. We're not talking about you.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, it has nothing to do with you, but I think like that is important. And then also too, like when it's like a significant other, and I was actually having a conversation with someone else on this podcast recently about a similar situation of sort of seeing that evolution. When you start to work on yourself, it is hard for the significant other, spouse, to like recognize that, or to deal with like, wow, you seem different.
Yeah.
And I just and I referenced to her, I said, well, my therapist and I, we had this thing that we said, like, it's a train. A train is going to leave the station. And it's either you can get on the train, be a part of the ride, or you can stay there and we will pass you by.
Yeah. And hope that you spin the block.
Do you think it's important to be able to like set expectations, or to talk about your goals with like family members that you may feel that may judge or have some kind of feel some type of way about people, seeking therapy?
Yeah, if they feel like that could be a hindrance to their growth throughout the process, I always, encourage people, because that's exercise and vulnerability too, which we always need to practice. Like, get in front of that, be proactive and not reactive. If you feel like that could eventually hinder you from being consistent, then yeah, do that on the front end. Let them know how they can support you. Hey, you're my tribe, you're my support system.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new endeavor that I'm really excited about, or I'm really apprehensive about. And this is how you can support me through that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think that is good. And I think that is actually something when you're considering going, and even before you like venture into your first appointment, to have those conversations. Because like, I know I personally didn't have the conversations until things had started to like, I started to, I guess, appear differently.
Yeah.
And then,
more boundaries. Like, what's happening? There are boundaries being shown. Now you're like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, it's like, why is she saying no to that when that used to be a automatic yes? It's like, nope.
Sorry, not sorry. Right, but like people that know that validation, and really through the course of therapy, you'll learn to kind of do without that anyway. But initially, you may be preoccupied with the idea that there might be outside judgment. And if that is a hindrance, then yes, get in front of it and practice that vulnerability, have those tough conversations. But if you're not concerned and you just want to kind of start something just for you and not maybe make everyone aware, that's your choice too. That's your option too.
Now, what do you say to people who, might be listening, watching, they are sort of having these like apprehensions about it being accessible to them? Like, how do I find it easily? Obviously, there are a lot of people whose insurance programs at their jobs still don't cover therapy. What recommendations do you have for that situation?
Yeah, I always encourage people, contact your HR, see if you do have an employee assistant program. So EAP programs cover the full cost of those sessions. Now, the thing about that is they usually limit it to between 6 and 12, which 12 may be enough. I don't know. It depends on the situation or the presenting issue that's bringing you in. But that may at least help you try it out, and where you're not financially obligated, like your job is, they may cover that, which is the beauty about mental health being so normalized. Like most jobs have EAP programs. Now, let's say you're interested in a specific therapist and they are not contracted with that EAP provider, then you may want to try to utilize your insurance. Now, most providers, most therapists are moving away from insurance just because there's so much red tape. It's almost like the insurance provider becomes the client and you kind of get lost as the client. They get to dictate how many sessions you get. They kind of overall kind of control the treatment and whether or not you are seen as medically, there's a medical necessity. So what a lot of therapists do is they provide a super bill. So how that works is that is a reimbursement to you. So there's an out of network, everybody has out of network benefits to some degree. So you start with your HR person. They may then point you in the right direction for an insurance representative, and just talk, have these conversations early. Say, hey, what do you cover? Oh, you don't cover anything? Then how about out of network reimbursement? And then I don't know of any therapist that would not provide a super bill. And a super bill is just an itemized receipt that allows that person to then still be in charge of their care. You're still the client. Now you're just going for out of network reimbursement. And a lot of my clients do that.
Okay. And what would you say what should people look for? Like when you are looking for a therapist and, like what should that selection process look like?
Yeah, it should look like you going to maybe like a directory like Psychology Today, maybe Therapy for Black Girls. I'll give you a list and maybe you can link that to your podcast later. But it should look like you going to a directory and searching based on your needs. Maybe you want to, I want a male. I want to, maybe I'm of Indian descent and I want an Indian descent based therapist or someone that's culturally close to my background. You get to pick. I mean, there's a million filters on there. I don't even know age probably wouldn't be on there, but like religious backgrounds, like faith-based, like I might want someone who's a Christian. I might want someone who's not. So you can go on any of those directories and search by insurance. You could search by gender. You can search by their specialty. Hey, I just want to work with someone who is trained in working with couples. That's all I want. And then I could go on there. I might want somebody who's online versus in person. There's so many filters on those websites. So I would recommend picking at least 5 that you think that, the words that they're speaking, because we all do like a little profile. If the words speak to you or you get a good vibe, maybe from the picture, then pick 5 people and interview them. This is the person that's going to be, in your life. You shouldn't just pick one person and feel like you're stuck with them. There's too many of us, honestly. So pick at least 5 and go through and interview them, figure out the questions. You could actually Google, hey, what are questions I should be asking a therapist? That's the beauty of the internet. There's so much out there, but yeah, there are questions you can ask. You want to try to build a rapport. There's a consultation that most therapists do offer, free 15-minute consultation. They're usually virtual. I'm sure somebody offers in person, but I don't know that you want to come out for 15 minutes. But
I know, right? Yeah.
It's in person or via Zoom or telehealth or whatever telehealth platform they use. And you're really just trying to see if there's a vibe with that person. Do I feel safe with this person? Is this person experienced? Can they help me? Are they experienced with what I'm experiencing? Right.
Yes. I mean, pro tip, everybody, if you don't get like a good feel, like I want to just cry in front of this person right now today,
Yeah.
then you probably need to move on.
Yeah, and that might not be your person. And another thing is we won't take it personal. Let's say you come in with a lot of people pleasing tendencies. You may feel like you have to choose the first person you work with. No, we wouldn't take it personal. Like I always advocate for people. It's your choice. This is a very important choice because most people keep their therapist throughout their lives. I have been with some of my clients through college and marriage and their own, you just go on this journey of life with them. So you want to make sure you're picking the right person for you.
Exactly. I mean, like we all don't get as lucky as I got with the first try, but I mean,
Oh, no, that's good. I'm glad you said that. There are some clients who I've heard, don't let one bad situation turn you off of therapy. It's just like getting your hair done.
Yeah.
How many of us have gone to get our hair done and it didn't turn out well? It's not like we'll never ever go back to another hairdresser. Keep trying until you find someone who really resonates with you.
Yeah. And it's like when you'll know. Like you will immediately know because and I just use my personal experiences here, people. But I mean, at our first visit, I remember I'll never forget. I remember talking and you saying, and what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And me just going on like this long tangent and you listening attentively and just letting me speak and then just sort of nailing it like right there. So these things keep happening to you because you don't have any boundaries. And I appreciated that it was direct and that, you weren't going around the bush to make me feel good about like, okay, and you don't, well, but you don't have any. Nope, you were like, you don't have any boundaries. So we need to work on that.
We got to work on that. And it shows up in so many different places because you probably gave me 3 or 4 different, what you would consider connected scenarios. And I'm telling you, it's all connected to the core of like, it's hard for you to tell people no, right? And you're getting exhausted by it. It's depleting you.
Yes, because I remember, I think my exact example was, I feel like that whatever that thing is where it throws up all the balls and you're like going from side to side trying to catch them. And I was like, wow. And I think back on that today and I'm like, oh, that must have sounded real crazy.
No. I mean, I've heard that. I've heard of people feeling like they're spinning in that revolving door that doesn't stop. I've heard people feel like
hamster wheel.
Yeah, napkin in the wind. Like it's just basically it feels like your life is not your own because you're constantly managing all the emotions of everybody else around you. And who's managing yours? Usually no one.
Exactly. That's so true. That's so true. But you see, guys, everybody listening. This is like, I feel like I'm in a session.
Right? Taking you back.
Taking me back. Okay. So now, obviously, we saw, a lot of people come to therapy at the start of the pandemic and the full year that we were all sheltered in place.
Yeah, 2020.
Yes.
We couldn't keep up with the demand. You're right.
And now, as we have sort of evolved to, I guess you would say, more of an endemic living with the pandemic because COVID's still there. We're just living with it.
Yeah.
And people are getting back to life, so to speak. Do you see now that the needs are shifting at all? Are people starting to get back to that? Well, I'm just, twisting, like you said, the napkin in the wind. Are people going back to that old lifestyle now? Or are you seeing that more people are still taking care of their mental health?
It's almost, I want to say 50-50, right? Like there's a consistent population of people who may have been introduced to therapy during the pandemic, but they will not live their life without it now. And I don't mean like on an intensive basis, could be every other week, could be once a month, but there are some people that are they just value that time, and it is prioritizing themselves, right? So it feels good for them to just make sure that they attend. It's some interval, again, like it could be once a month. And there are other people who, were stuck in that very depressed, very isolated space. And now that they feel like maybe the world is back, back to normal, they may pop in and out more. They may be less consistent. And the unfortunate part about that is they were actually experiencing a lot of anxiety or a lot of depressive like symptoms prior to the pandemic.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But it just gave them, I guess, a deeper need or craving to kind of get out of this isolated space or get out of that ruminating headspace. And so now
Right.
it's almost like nothing's really changed as far as like even them getting the tools or them having that insight or support. But again, they may just feel like, hey, the world's back open and now I'm kind of free to move around. But what we typically see is these cyclical issues, or like, let's say you can go 6 months, you usually hit like a depletion point where you're like, oh my goodness, these lack of boundaries, they keep showing up. Like the things that you haven't healed will keep repeating themselves. So
Yes.
I don't expect for people to like be gone, stay gone, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
about 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but I think like even with that is a little like disheartening to hear, because it is, like you said, the issues that existed prior to.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason you noticed them during the pandemic is because you were alone with your thoughts
Yep. You
more
have
often.
time. Yep.
Yeah, you couldn't run away, you couldn't go hang out, couldn't go out to brunch and hang out with your friends. You just had to be with your thoughts and you had to think about things. And also these moments of, oh my gosh, like, people realizing like life is fragile, like,
Yeah.
this is happening. So, and so you would hope that people would like have continued, even if you're, like you said, even if you're just continuing on a monthly basis, because it's still important to like consistency is going to help with the healing.
Yeah.
And so, and I say that because, as I mentioned at the opening of this episode, is that a lot of people treat therapy like it's an accessory.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like it's a la carte, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going about today. I think I'm gonna pick me up some therapy, some therapy.
Hop in. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and it was super trendy. So like everybody wanted to talk about having a therapist, even if they weren't attending sessions regularly. It just
Yeah.
became something trendy or something they feel like they can do as a result of something, as opposed to being proactive. They were
Yeah.
reactive.
I'm gonna get a side of therapy with that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
so can you talk about the idea of like, I mean, you touched on it briefly, but just really that importance of the healing journey and the consistency in that leading to healing.
Yeah, and healing can be very deceptive too, like where you may see clients who are very, initially very consistent, and then it's almost like this relief, or maybe whatever was presenting in that moment is relieved, and so they feel like, yo, I'm good. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very deceptive because something will happen. It's inevitable. And then they'll be triggered and they'll come back and they'll be like, oh my goodness, like I thought that was it. Like it was a very isolated incident, and it's not. We are the sum of all of our parts. And so that healing has to be continuous. And I always give people the analogy of working out. So let's say I'm really concentrated. Let's say during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of at-home workouts. I'm probably going to look pretty good. Now, if I just stop and then I'm back to eating and I'm back to doing all these, very unhealthy lifestyle patterns, more than likely, whatever weight I lost or whatever toning I did or whatever my goal was, I'm not going to be able to keep that consistent. So it's the same thing. You train your emotionality like you train your body. You want to be consistent. You want to make a lifestyle change. You don't want to just do the drop in, let me look cute for a photo shoot, and then the next few months I'm just falling off.
I like that. It's a really good analogy.
And people do it. They think that they're good. And I mean, any
Yeah.
type of growth and any type of goal, you have to be continuously maintaining it. Even as a therapist, like we have to constantly be in school. I just thought about that the other day. We all had to renew our licenses on the 30th of September. And let me tell you, these CEUs are vicious because they're very expensive. Like, very expensive. When people talk about therapy is expensive, it's an expensive vocation or career to be in for us, because we're always having to, and we want to, right? But we can just graduate grad school and finish our degrees and then we're done. Like we're always learning, we're always having to fine tune our own tools. So it's the same thing. We have to maintain consistency, so should clients.
Yes, yes, because like you said, I feel like it takes at least 3 months of consistent sessions and practice on the client's part before you actually begin to see like a noticeable difference, because we are human. We are going to go back to the same patterns that we normally did, the triggers that we had, the same triggers are going to keep knocking, especially in those first 3 months. It seems like they're like, it's like they called somebody and said, hey, she going to therapy now. So we gotta really act up now.
Right. It's almost like these lessons almost intensify around the idea that you're changing an old default pattern. Or you're just more noticing, you're just more aware as you kind of heal and you drop a lot of that heaviness that you've been carrying. You have more capacity to be more aware, and the lessons will kind of be cyclical. You might be okay on this area for a while, and then it'll come back and test you, and you may pass, you may not. But there's no shame in it. Even clients that may pop in and out, I never try to, create judgment or shame, and I'm sure other therapists don't, but we are very assertive and we are very specific about, hey, what makes this more difficult for you and why this seems to probably have gotten you back to a point of exhaustion is because you haven't been consistent. Now you're trying to catch me as your therapist up, and we're spending that session not even on working on the presenting issue. You're trying to catch me up from all this time. It's almost like you're playing a game of catch up. It doesn't work.
Yes. If you've got like a 50-minute session and you spent 45 of the minutes just telling you about all the things in the last 2 months that have triggered you. And then it's like, now tell me what to do about it.
Yeah. Okay, that's time. See you next time. Right.
See you 2 months from now when you.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Oh, can you edit that out?
That's life. We just let life happen here at the Gyrl podcast.
And when you have children, trust me, that's one of my children. And the warning of, hey, I'm working, I'm in a, they don't care.
They're like, well, they're like, we're the children. So
what are you doing? What are you answering?
Yes. Well, I agree with you. And I think all those things are true. And especially too, from like I said, I like this one. I like this, this analogy of like, they get together and they call each other and they like, hey, she in therapy, y'all trigger. They were like, go.
Yeah, push her button. Right.
But it is something pretty magical when you, like you said, when you gain that awareness and you see them coming, and just being able, just getting those like tools and resources, they're great. I mean, one of my favorite messages and pieces of advice and tools that you've given me, I actually used yesterday. It is in the form of a gift of communication to someone. It is, I am just here to give you this message. What you do with it is up to you.
Right.
But I have given it to you. Thank you. I will exit stage left now.
Yeah. I will. And I've unburdened myself. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's almost, and I literally just said this in a session yesterday, because people usually don't communicate their own feelings based on the response they think they're going to get. Like, oh, she doesn't care, or oh, my partner doesn't care. Who cares if they care? It's not for them. Like, ideally, maybe they'll reciprocate, or maybe they'll have an epiphany moment. But for the most part, people are usually who they are. It's for you. You're trying to unburden yourself. And so it's like a sweater at Christmas. Here you go, rock it or not. I feel good. I feel good giving it.
Oh my gosh.
It's not for me to monitor or police if you're wearing it. It's just for me to feel good.
Yes.
Burden myself, or I've met my burden as a person. I made sure to prioritize and show up for me.
And I will say to everyone listening or watching that is where consistency, like being consistent, comes into play, because I don't know how many times I have been given that direction. and finally, and I mean, I've been seeing you since 2019, and I, gladly dropped that gift off with the ease and just went and picked up my notebook and kept walking.
Yeah. Doesn't it feel good? Like, I tell people, I got to the point where I'm almost excited about not a confrontation, because people correlate communication with confrontation. It's clarity. It's me giving clarity. It's me like actively showing myself that I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to manage the emotions of the receiver. I'm going to show up for me. I get excited. I love a good, like, hey, let me tell you what's going on. I love it.
Yes, because it's transparency. Yeah. And like you said, it's like, vulnerability for like that person, because I'm opening up and I'm telling you how I feel and I'm communicating and I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And it's
whether or not you can handle that, it's on you. Yeah.
And when you have the tools, you know that it's not coming from a nasty place. You're able to
Yes.
communicate something, and ideally it shouldn't activate a person. No one has to internalize or take ownership of what you're saying, because you know how to say it in a way that just, conveys feeling. Hey, I felt this,
Right.
and you may not intended it to, but there's an impact either way. And this is what I need to tell you. And then guess what? I feel free. I feel like I'm really showing up for myself, and I don't carry that weight of whatever that situation is. I have no resentment about it. I'm more than likely going to move through it. I'm not going to stay stuck in that space because I've actually shown up.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you all are very welcome for that.
No, people have a hard time. They do. They're just like, oh, it's going to be a fight, or oh, it takes two people to argue.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yep. Yeah. You don't
don't
have to
show up to every
use.
party you're invited to, right? Like, why do I
Is
have to? I don't have to.
yes.
It takes two people. It takes a choice for me to sit here and debate with you. I can communicate in an assertive, not aggressive space, definitely not passive aggressive, very assertive space. And then if it starts to go left, guess what I can do? I'm sorry you received that. I can now leave. Like, I always have the choice. I don't have to actively engage in a confrontation or feel like if I speak my heart that someone's going to minimize or negate or like deflect. I'm not going to give that power to someone else. And that's something therapy can teach you. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Thank you for sharing those nuggets. I appreciate that.
Word.
Okay. So before we wrap up, why don't you tell everyone about, how to get into how to contact you and the practice, and about any of the programs that you currently are offering.
Sure. Well, we are at www. I'm sure you'll have this up, but I'll still say
yes.
www.hea, because happily ever after, heacounseling.org or .com. I have to check. It might be .com, but it's heacounseling.com.
Gotcha.
heacounseling.org is one of them. That's the website. That's the easiest way to get in touch, because there's so many contact us buttons and calls to action. You can call us from there. You can email. Just reach out, even if you're just thinking about it. And if we're not able to help you, the beauty is I do work in a collective as far as African-American therapists in Atlanta. Let's say you reach out and there's not a therapist there that specializes in what you want. I'm sure I'll be able to point you in the right direction. Or if you might want to use insurance and we don't utilize insurance for our clients, I might be able to at least refer you, like trying to at least put your foot forward to get started if you've considered it for a while. And we welcome you in. We already know you might be apprehensive. We know you might be afraid. Usually that's how I start first sessions. Like, hey, let's get that out of the way. What are some of your fears, or what are some of your thoughts, to try to, just dispel any myth that you might come in with. And most therapists do that as well.
Awesome. All right. So what would you like for the audience, if you give us maybe 3 things that we can take away from today's conversation?
Well, definitely take away that you must be consistent. Like, whatever that looks like, communicate with your therapist. Let's say you are having a hard time. Let's say it's your work schedule. Again, virtual makes it very convenient. I even have sessions all the way till 9 tonight. Like, I have a couple after this at 7 and an individual session at 8. So, don't let anything stand in the way, but trying to be consistent, or at least communicate what might be a hindrance to that consistency for you. Definitely would be huge, because you want to be able to slowly but surely kind of not just heal, but still build on the tools that you're given. So that's the number one thing, is try your best, if you are able to start, to be consistent. Also, like, when you're looking for a therapist, I really do want people to start to interview. You're hiring someone. And again, maybe I'll link a list of all these directories or places, because a lot of people don't know where to find someone. Go on these sites, filter out based on your own needs, and pick at least 3 to 5 people. 15-minute consults. That's not a lot of time for you, but you can actually see if there's a good fit in there. So definitely that would be number 2. And number 3 would just be, even though that, we are endemic and we are kind of at the end of this thing, or at least, we're learning how to live with COVID, don't just think that your healing journey is over or it's done, because then actually people process a lot of failure. Like they feel like they've made all this progress, just like the analogy of the gym. Okay, let's say you're at a point, you're listening to this and you were very active, but you haven't been. It's never too late to go back. You can always go back. If your therapist, if you've worked with that person, reach out to them, email them, shoot them whatever your mode of contact is, and just let them know that you're considering coming back. They'll be happy to have you back.
Awesome. Awesome. Those are really great takeaways. As always, it is always a pleasure. You know that. And I'm so glad that we were able to record this episode because it's just really important, people. I know y'all hear me say this all the time, but taking care of your mental health, having a safe space is it's been so like critical and just like a life-changing thing for me personally. And I want everybody to experience this opportunity and just the change and the healing that it can bring to your life.
Yeah. And if nothing else, like understanding that, you're sending the message to yourself that you're worth it. Like whatever it is, work through those, it does send a very powerful message. It is a form of self-care as far as you saying to yourself, I'm worth it.
Yes. Well, I can't think of a better way to end this discussion. So as always, Dr. Kori, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned. I will be right back. Welcome back to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thanks again to Kori for joining the show today and for sharing all that really great information. If you wanted to learn more about WHO and World Mental Health Day and just some of the activities that they do, you can actually visit who.int or just Google World Health Organization, and you can learn more there. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Kori and her practice, you can check the show links. You can also check the show links for the World Health Organization information as well. I thank you all for taking time to listen to this episode, especially it's a special episode. It's important to me. For those of you who have been listening to me for some time, I do talk a lot about mental health and mental health awareness. It's really important that we all have the opportunity to be listened to be heard, I would say, sorry. We all have the right for someone to hear us. We have the right to get the help that we need. It's okay to ask for help. And there are definitely a lot of resources, as we discussed today, that you can take advantage of. So please do that. Please help out where you can. Please share the word with your friends, with your family as well. So as always, thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for listening. I will see you all again on Thursday for a new episode of the Gyrl podcast. Until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.